Thank you, Ian. Welcome back, everyone. We hope you have enjoyed the day so far. We're glad to bring you this panel with Kota Kondo and Felix Garcia, two alumni of our Tomodachi program. This is actually their first time meeting, so I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to each other first. We think it's important to note that they are meeting for the first time to talk about an issue that some of you all will be discussing for the first time as well. Kota and Felix.
Hi, my name is Kota, and I'm studying aerospace engineering at Kyushu University. I was a Tomodachi regional leader in Kyushu region, and I organized events to raise the public awareness of LGBTQ community in Japan. And then we joined the LGBTQ parade in Hakata, Kyushu, which is really great. And also last year, thanks to Tomodachi Sumitomo Corporation Scholarship, I studied at the University of Michigan. There, I joined the Global Scholars Program, and I studied racial justice and also human rights, nationalism, and those issues. So I'm really excited to be here and to talk about important issues.
Great, thank you, Kota. And Felix?
Yes, hello. My name is Felix Garcia. I participated in the Tomodachi Daiwa House Student Leadership Conference in Boston. I am a first-gen college student. I'm majoring in IT at UMass Boston. I'm also the president of the Japanese Language Club on campus, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you both. We're looking forward to hearing from you today. We're going to look at the conversation around discrimination and how it has changed in both the US and Japan in 2020. A lot has happened this year, but perhaps one of the biggest shifts we've seen is around that of Black Lives Matter and how it is impacting these conversations around diversity, discrimination, and equality in our countries and around the world. As we've mentioned, this is the third installment of the Critical Conversation series, and you both have joined us for our previous ones and have made very good points each time. Why did you decide to join Critical Conversations? Kota?
The biggest thing, because I was a Tomodachi regional leader, and I've been really interested in address social issues. And also, as I said, I went to Michigan last year, and I joined the Global Scholars Program, or GSP. They're like international students and American students like live together and learn together, take the same classes. And, through that, we learned, as I said, nationalism, human rights, and really, really interested in how to address the social and global issues. And I'm studying engineering, so like I wanted to solve those problems with technology and engineering, and that's the biggest reason. And also, as you said, I joined the part 1 and part 2 critical conversation. In part 1, there was we had a guest speaker who has been like doing BLM movement in Japan, and I was really inspired, her passion, and I was really inspired. And also the critical conversation too, it was about like incarceration of Japanese American during World War II. And then, it was more like history, and like it was like 75 years ago, like 80 years ago. Well, like, through that conversation, I realized that what happened in the past was not something like just the past, disconnected to the current, to the present. No, it's actually like more like continuous flow. And then through that, maybe I can do something now, and that can, impact to the future, So like, why not? Like, I want to join. And Kaoru Utada, she's the director of programs and partnership with the US JC, and she just gave me a call. Hey, Kota, do you want to join the conversation? I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So that's why I joined this.
We love that. We love that. Thanks for sharing. And Felix?
Yes, I think the reason I joined Critical Conversations is because the subject matter is really important to me in my life. Social justice is a really important thing that I believe everyone should be aware of. It has an impact on me and my community. I think that racism is a problem everywhere, and systemic oppression exists in every country. And so it's important to, if we want to take steps to address these issues, we need to be willing to have these conversations together.
Yes, great points by both of you. And I'm so glad that we're able to speak with both of you and hear your perspectives on these. If this year has taught us one thing, it is that activism takes many forms. It can look like donations to organizations, or it can look like showing up at protests. How would you all define your brand of advocacy? How do you show up in your activism, and what does activism look like for you? And again, we'll start with Kota.
Okay, obviously, taking action, actually, joining the protest. That's what I did at the Kyushu Rainbow Parade, and just taking on the street. That's to me the biggest what I can do for activism. But also like this COVID-19 pandemic, it's kind of hard to do that. We all care about our families. We don't want to take that risk. Protest. It's important. It's really great, but also people get together, and it's not really good for COVID-19 wise. So like it's really difficult. So instead of actually joining, we can use social media. That's great activism, I guess. You can speak up on social media, or you can share your thoughts. You can share other thoughts, and you can do that. I think that's great activism. And also just casual conversation with your family. Hey, there's an issue, like what do you think? Just talk about it casually. I think that can be a good activism.
Yes, having conversations is very important, which is what we're doing here today, right? Felix, how about you?
Yes, I actually second everything that Kota said. Those are really great ways to be active, and it really shows that there is no one way to be active, to advocate for these issues. I think for me, what's important to me is a civic engagement. So I am registered to vote. I remind my friends to register to vote and to go out and vote. I go voting with my family. And also, I really try to commit to growth and learning. We're never done learning about these issues. They're always evolving. I've taken courses on race, class, and gender, and I listen to podcasts and reading articles as well. And also, I challenge myself to participate whenever I can to different events where I can have opportunities to learn more or interact with people and have those conversations as well.
I love that you mentioned that you go voting with your family. That's so important. Every vote counts, right? And we've seen that this year and in every election. So yeah, that's really great that's one of the ways that your advocacy and activism shows up. So Kota, I want to specifically ask you a question about the Nike ad, which hopefully many in our audience have seen. And if you haven't, definitely go watch it. They just released it about a week ago. And it has been met with some mixed reactions and definitely stirred some feelings around the world, but in Japan as well. So Kota, what did you think when you first saw the ad? And what did you think after you saw the reactions to the ad?
Yeah, the first reaction was definitely, wow, this is a great ad. That's my first reaction. And it kind of reminded me that the ad about Colin Kaepernick, NFL player a couple of years ago. And so at the same time, I was inspired, but also at the same time, I knew that was going to get backlash to some extent from Japanese population. And yeah, actually, we had a meeting that I saw the ad, and then right after that, Ella, and we had a meeting, and I wrote it up and just like, hey, like, did you watch it? We actually watched it together. In this, we should definitely include that ad, to this conversation. We're just talking about it. But yeah, so because of that, why I thought that was gonna get backlash or a negative reaction, is that our culture, kusai mono ni wa futa o suru culture, it's basically covering up smelly stuff and just leave it alone and just don't think about it. It's sometimes good. You make some mistakes and the failure, you embarrass yourself and just forget about it. Just move on to the next. So it could be a good thing, but in this situation, there's an issue, especially like racial discrimination and racial issues in Japan, which is really important. But like, nah, we don't want to talk about it. That the culture, it's I think deep rooted in our culture, and it's kind of hard to change it. But so because of that, I know that growing up in Japan, I know that culture. So maybe and then Nike is, foreign company, and then just came to Japan and pointed out our problem, hey, like this issue, like, hey, what, like, don't stick your nose, like, it's our problem, just like that. I knew that was, the people think like that. It kind of did actually, seeing the negative reactions on social media. It's very saddening, but at the same time, that's Nike, wanted to happen actually. I guess, there's an issue and we start the conversation, and that's great, I guess. So yeah, as you said, it got mixed reactions, but eventually it started the conversation in Japan. So I think overall it's a good thing. Yeah, positive.
It did what they planned for it to do, definitely. And I love that you brought up the Colin Kaepernick aspect as well. Yes, very similar to when he started kneeling here in the US. There were very mixed reactions on that. And then Nike actually gave him an ad, right? And so Nike continues to sort of push that messaging forward. So it's great to hear your sort of thoughts on that. Felix, a specific question for you. You mentioned that you've gone to protests before, and you went to the protests this year around the death of George Floyd in June. How did it feel to be in Boston during these protests?
I think that's a difficult question to answer because I feel like I'm still coming to terms with everything that's been happening this year. I think that the pandemic was already difficult enough to deal with when that first started and everything shut down, to then having to see all the news coverage of the death of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and how people were, activated and they were taken to the streets. It was a lot to take in. I did consider whether or not to go out to take that risk and go out to protest. And yes, I did go to some. I think one thing that I noticed when I was out there is that how diverse the crowd was. There was just so many different kinds of people, especially many non-Black people who showed up in support of the movement. That was great. I think, however, it was difficult to see how aggressive the police response was at certain points. For me, I noticed the one that I went to, at some point during the night, it just became a lot different. Like the mood changed. We saw a lot more police moving in, seeing the National Guard out there in downtown Boston was just really shocking to me. And then when the police were shutting down streets and the trains were shut down, it was really it was really I think scary for me, because I wasn't sure. All I could think about was trying to get home, and I wasn't sure how that was going to happen. Thankfully, I did. And I think that experience just demonstrates why these protests are so necessary.
Thank you for sharing that. I know it's difficult to sort of relive those moments. They were really, you see them on the news and you saw everything sort of happening on social media, but to be there in person is a very different story, and it definitely brings up a lot of emotions. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. 6 months in, how do you think things have changed in Boston or even in the US, or continue to change from a university student perspective?
Yes, I think that what I've seen, especially in the news and in social media, more larger companies taking a clear stand against racism and in support of Black Lives Matter. The mayor of Boston declared racism a public health crisis, which is huge given the history of Boston. I know that on campus, many people have been doing a lot more work in regards to raising awareness. For example, at UMass, we held our first annual Black Lives Matter Day, where they had a series of virtual events centered on generating awareness of systemic anti-Black racism and injustice, and promoting positive change and things that people can do to move things forward.
Yeah, yeah. Kota, 6 months later, have you noticed any changes with conversations you've been having? Anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I see that now that people know that the problem there is, I mean, like that BLM kind of what did to Japanese society was, there's a problem again, like there's a like racial issues in the US, not just in Japan. People like me, like, before going to the US, I was like, no, like we learned slavery and we learned Martin Luther King in 60s. Civil rights movement, but like I felt like it was past, like we had Barack Obama, and I was like, it's not right now, we don't have any problem like that, but like actually no, there's still problem going on, and the people made me aware that the problem, and we started talking about it, but yet still, like, Japanese population are really homogenous. I mean, like it's like 98, like over 98% of Japanese. Still, like, it's not our problem. Still, I can feel that, like, it's like what's happening, it's like still in the US. So again, like Nike ad did was significant because the BLM, it's like the US problem, not ours, but like Nike pointed out, hey, like you guys have the racial issues again. So like, yeah, then like we started the conversation. So yeah, that's basically what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That actually segues very nicely into my next question, which is, how do you all see Black Lives Matter, both as a movement and the words, reshaping the conversations on discrimination in the US and Japan? We've seen them active in both countries, both the organization and people associated with the organization, but we wonder if you all could share with us how you've seen, people your age maybe talking about this more, or things like that.
Okay. As I just said, the BLM movement changed the narrative in Japan, definitely. The one thing, like Naomi Osaka spoke up about the issue, she was wearing 7 masks with 7 names and during her 7 matches. And because of that, I actually saw a TV news that there was a reporter and she was talking about, hey, like Naomi Osaka doing this and what that means, who are they, the name on the mask, and like she started talking about it, like how what happened to them, and like how did it happen like that. So it was really great, even though like BLM movement was just was going on like in June, July, but like because of Naomi Osaka spoke up, in September, I guess, I remember. And then like really the news started talking about it, and then we started talking about it. So definitely, and then, the Naomi Osaka is our generation. She's not like, in her 40s or 50s. No, like she's like our generation, younger people have the same problem. So like, yeah, again, as you asked, my generation started talking about it. It was a really big thing, I guess. Yeah.
Felix, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat of a similar experience to Kota. I would say that this is a difficult question because I mean, I don't see myself as a spokesperson for Black Lives Matter. It's not a movement that just started this year. It's been around for several years now, and even before that, there was always different organizations and groups that were trying to address the same issues. It's been going on for decades, if not centuries, in this country. With that being said, I think that the Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement has brought more attention to not just police brutality, but also systemic racism. And I think that what we're seeing now is people are more open to that. There has been a shift in narrative. People are more acknowledging that the existence of systemic racism, of inequality, of privileges, and we're seeing people having more discussions about the impact that is happening in marginalized groups. But there's still a long way to go, I think.
Yeah, I would say as someone who saw the impact on social media, right? So I saw the protests happening in Osaka and in Tokyo, and then as well as in the US. I think they have definitely brought the words Black Lives Matter to the forefront of the conversation, but also have brought the movement to the forefront of the conversation, right? So it'll be interesting to see, if people continue to use those words and encourage people to understand the concept of Black Lives Matter as we continue to move forward as countries and as friends and different things. One final question sort of brings us to thinking about how we can continue these conversations into the future. In Japan, we hear the terminology, jibungoto, right? Or what can you personally do to speak up for people and realize that there is an issue that affects everyone. Or you may have heard of the term bystanders, which is a description of people who stand by while things happen to others. And that's been replaced with the term upstanders, right? So that's when people stand up when they see injustice. How do you see your platforms inspiring the next generation to speak up about these issues? And what advice do you have for your Tomo alumni or the generation after you about how to keep having these conversations?
Yeah, definitely. I will use social media as my platform, and they could speak up, and then use that. Also, after the pandemic, I'll definitely join the protest and just show my support for the community and for the movement. I'll definitely do that. And then again, like if I'm invited to this such event and like this event, I'll definitely join and speak up and share my thoughts. And then also listen to others. I want to do that. I have to educate myself still. I'm still learning. So like I want to do that, and definitely I'll join lots of events like this. So for the advice for the next generation, I would say, they've been growing up with social media and technology. They know much better about IT and technology than us, and they know how to use it. They know the power, the influence of that. So definitely for the advice for the next generation, you should definitely use that at your, and also especially for just Tomodachi alumni, you've got this amazing people, the amazing community, people you can trust, people, who support you no matter what, you can always count on this community, and it's a safe place. So it's really, you are very lucky. Actually, I'm lucky. I have this about this community. I'm really happy about to have this community. But so you have this, so like you should definitely use that. There's so many people out there who wants to help you. So like you should definitely talk to them, reach out to them, and yeah, I'm sure they're happy to help you. So definitely use that. And for those who are not Tomodachi alumni, so there's a USJ's website, and there's a Tomodachi initiative. They definitely join this community. I mean, you can there are so many programs, and definitely one of them would interesting. Yeah, you can find it interesting. So definitely join this community. This is amazing. Such a great community. Yeah.
So glad to hear that you've had a great experience with Tomodachi, and definitely encourage, yes, if you're interested, definitely look into it and reach out to your current alumni if you're a member of it. Felix?
That was really amazing. I totally agree with everything that Kota was saying. I think it's hard to answer because I don't really usually see myself as someone who can inspire other people. I think I'm more inspired by my peers, those who aren't afraid to step out and take a stand is always inspiring me. But I think that when I think about where I'm heading in my career, I'm heading into an industry that's where people who look like me are underrepresented. And I'm hoping that by doing that, I'm able to inspire more people to pursue opportunities that they didn't think that they could do before. As for advice for the future generations or other alumni, I would say second everything that Kota was saying. And I would add that it's really important to making those cross-cultural and cross-racial friendships and diversifying your networks. That's something that I've been very intentional about. And also always questioning and challenging assumptions is really important. That's how you learn and you inspire others to learn. And being comfortable with discomfort is really important. And no matter where you are on your journey, you can always be an advocate and an ally.
Great advice from both of you. Thank you both so much for sharing your stories today. I hope that everyone in the audience was taking notes. You all will have an opportunity to have these same discussions tomorrow. So think about sort of what Kota and Felix said about their experiences, what they saw, how they were able to process the things that happened this year, and how they're moving forward. They gave us the advice to use social media, right? Continue to speak on those platforms and use your voice to really keep these critical conversations going. They told us to reach out to our community if you're a Tomodachi alum, or even if you're not, reach out to your peers, reach out to the community that you have, and really make sure that you're continuing to have these conversations and create friendships across the borders, right? Across the US and Japan, and make sure that you're staying in touch with them and continuing to have these conversations, because this is how we will move forward with these conversations to a world where we are all sort of understanding of each other and our backgrounds. And we really, really appreciate Felix and Kota sharing with each other and sharing with us about this conversation.